Hello everyone, welcome back to a new video. For today's video I'm doing a fun reading vlog. I have a lot of backlisted high fantasy books on this shelf. A lot of YA books that I bought when I was younger, didn't actually read when I was younger, and then now I have them on my shelf and just sitting there. So for today's video I'm going to read 3 backlisted YA fantasy books. I think they were all published in like 2010 to 2016. I should really start with the book that is like the oldest. I'm gonna start with the book that is the shortest of them all because I just read Runbreaker by Victoria Aveyard. That's such a big book and I just didn't feel like reading a big book. One of the books is The Exiled Queen by Sienna Williams Chima. This is book 2 in the Seven Realms series. I read the first one, here I have it, The Demon King. I read the first one like 2 years ago or something. It was good. It follows 2 or 3 main characters, I can't really remember. A street lord, and street lord I'm talking about like a 16-year-old guy who is a street lord over other teenagers, and a princess, and there's a lot of like magical things going on. Some people are trying to take over the kingdom that this princess is going to rule someday. I don't know if there was a romance between the princess and the street lord or if it was a romance between the princess and a knight, but there was some romance in this book. I know that they are going to kind of get together. The two of them and other characters from the first book are going to this magical school to, I don't know, go undercover and learn magic. I don't really know. So I know it would have been nice for me to read actually the first book in a series, but since I already read this and had this on my shelf, the sequel, I thought that I could read this for this video since it was published in 2010. So the next one, published in 2014 I believe, The Queen of the Tearling by Erica Johansson. So this is about a young princess who becomes queen of the Tearling, and I think there's a lot of people trying to kill her and overtake the throne, but she has to, you know, save the kingdom. I think this is going to be like a kind of fast-paced, maybe heisty political book. I don't know. And then I'm going to read a book that was published in 2016, and that's The Rebel of the Sands by Alwyn Hamilton. So this is set in a desert, full of main character, maybe like Katniss and Rey. Those two are mentioned on this book. So she is living in the desert and I don't think she has any family there, not really a home. But then a mysterious foreigner comes to her home and she gets to go outside of this little village that she has lived in and actually see the world. If I was going to read them in publication order, I would read it this way, but I'm actually going to start with Rebel of the Sands by Alwyn Hamilton because it is the shortest and I think it's going to be the one with the quickest pace. I just feel like I'm going to love this. I have read 2 chapters in Rebel of the Sands by Alwyn Hamilton and I really like the first 2 chapters. And some books have a really slow beginning, everything is introduced very slowly, but I feel like we got introduced to the character, what the character wants, what stands in her way, and we got introduced to the foreigner really quickly. Like in the first chapter, Amani is dressed as a boy competing in this shooting contest, you know, in disguise and everything. Nobody really knows that she's there. She's supposed to be there because I have gotten the vibe that the men in this society is the rulers essentially, and the women doesn't have any rights at all. They are only seen as someone's wife or someone's daughter, and so she has to hide her identity. And in this contest the foreigner is also competing, and in the end of the contest some things happen and they have to escape together. This is what I like about like YA fantasy, some of them at least. We get introduced to the 2 main characters of this book. We get introduced to Amani's wants, like I said. We got to know her family, we got to know the world as well, where she lives, how the people are like there, and her dreams, like where she wants to go. She wants to escape the small town that she's living in now. That's the first update, 2 chapters in, and I'm really enjoying it. Amani seems like a kind of badass girl, liking it a lot, and we'll see how this whole reading experience continues. I have read some more in Rebel of the Sands by Alwyn Hamilton, and I am on chapter 19, page 246. So I'm a little bit more than halfway. I have been listening a lot to the audiobook. I think the last time that I talked to you guys was at the beginning, and it was just at the point where Amani met the foreigner. and she hadn't got out of Dustwalk or Deadshot, the town that she was living in. She hadn't really gotten out of there yet, and it actually took a lot longer for her to actually get out of Dustwalk than I originally thought, because I thought that that would happen like in the 3rd chapter. It didn't happen in the 3rd chapter, but a little bit after that. The foreigner is called Jin. We got his name after that. Jin, the foreigner, goes with Amani because Amani really wants to get out of Dustwalk, and there was a lot happening there. She had really had to get out of there. She had to flee, essentially, with Jin. And then they got, like, with some other guys, a caravan, and they have been on this whole journey together throughout the middle of the book. And now, at this point, which is like 2/3 of the book, now we have gotten more information about the rebellion, because she lives in a country who is ruled by a sultan, I think it's called. But the people doesn't really like the sultan, because the sultan has kind of offered a lot of the country to this foreign kingdom to rule. So there's like foreign troops and soldiers on their land, and they're burning villagers. So there's a rebellion where the sultan has like 12 children maybe, and one of his sons is the guy that has started the rebellion, the rebel prince that took his sister with him when he ran away. And now we have gotten to know that whole side of the rebellion and the truth behind it, because there has only been like rumors, and that's what Amani has been going off of. She didn't really know anything else. And now we also know Jin's place in all this. So now we're at that point. The only thing that I'm feeling like I'm gripping onto with this story is the romance, because it is a romance between Amani and the foreigner, Jin. And there is a trope in this book that the foreigner, the love interest, he doesn't trust people very often. You know, the trope where the love interest doesn't trust anyone, doesn't like anyone except for you, except for the main character of the book. Like, you are the special one. And I thought that was kind of tropey and kind of like ridiculous when I read that. That's like in this chapter before or something. Okay, my camera shut off, but even though it's a little tropey, and I think it's a little bit ridiculous, because they had like an intimate thing in the beginning. It's a YA, so how intimate can it be? After that, it was kind of weird, because after that they didn't mention it. They didn't talk about the thing. Where do they stand now? I don't really get that. But I am excited to find out. So honestly, that's what keeps me going right now. This is, I think, a 3-star. Depending on how it ends, it could change. It's a solid YA fantasy book. It's really fast-paced. I really appreciate the global aspect and the political aspect of the story, like with how the country works and how the other countries in the world works, because Jane has traveled to a lot of places, so Amani gets to hear about those places through him. And I really appreciate seeing how different every country is and how they are ruled, and seeing how the author has drawn inspiration from our own history, our own countries, and that's that. So my plan is to listen to this book, keep listening to it, because I'm going to fix in my bullet journal and I like to listen to things during that. So that's my plan. It's about 100 pages left, so maybe I will be able to finish this today, and it's quite early in the day, so I think I will be able to update you guys again later today and actually finish this book and then tell you my final thoughts. It's a couple of hours later. I took off my makeup and I finished Rebel of the Sands. I'm giving it a solid 3 stars. I think I could have given it like 3.75 if I really wanted to, or 3.5. I really enjoyed it. It was a solid YA fantasy book. I really enjoyed Amani as the main character. She was really badass, and not really in the way maybe that, you know, the stereotypical badass woman is. And so even though she was badass, she wasn't perfect. You know, that's what I liked about Amani as our main character. And then I also liked Jin. I liked that he was very like flirtatious, very mischievous. The ending chapters were really fast-paced. There was a lot of things happening, and we got to know Amani on a much deeper level, because she found out about things about herself that she didn't know anything about. I said that the romance was the main thing that drove the story, and you know, the romance isn't a big thing in this book, and in the end it felt kind of lackluster for me. Thinking back on the story, I can't remember how it all started between them two, or like when the attraction actually began. So maybe the romance wasn't the greatest, but I'm still like interested in seeing where the romance is going next. And now I'm going to start The Queen of the Tearling by Erica Johansson. This is longer. I think this is much heavier, even though it's a YA fantasy book. I think it's much heavier than Rebel of the Sands. You know, in the writing, it feels dense, not just because it's kind of a heavy book. But yeah, I will start reading this tonight and keep listening to it tomorrow, and then I will talk to you guys when I have gotten 25% into the book, or even sooner, maybe later. Hello and welcome to an update, about The Queen of the Tearling. I wanted to talk to you guys when I was like one chapter in, because from the get-go we got a really clear view of what this book was about and how the story was going to go. So in the first chapters, Kelsey is taken from the cottage that she has been living in all her life, hiding from her people and hiding from her uncle, which is the regent of the kingdom. She's the princess, she is the heir to the throne, and she is taken away in the first chapter from her cottage to go to the capital, which is called New London. From the get-go we understand what this book is about. It's about her journey to become queen, and becoming a good one, I'm suspecting. Along the way there was a little bit of hiccups, you know, she didn't get there right away. We got to see kind of a rebellion side of things, and she got to know a man there who is supposed, I think, to be the love interest. There hasn't been any kind of romance in this book so far, but I must say that this isn't young YA. I would rather say that this is older YA. There's a lot of swear words in this one, not a lot of them, but like some swear words. Sometimes the author describes things that may not be described in other books. It's been interesting so far. I got two things that I'm not liking, which was really early on. One of those things is the description of the main character, Kelsey. You know, all of YA really had a kind of trope that used to be in a lot of YA books, and that is that the main character is supposed to be really plain. You know, it really shows when this was published that that was a thing. You know, it said a lot, like how Kelsey didn't want to look in a mirror because she was so plain. How, for example, the supposed to be love interest, I think, he saved her life basically and needed to change her clothes. So she was a bit upset about that, or embarrassed about that, and he said that she was too plain for him. And that's just such an unnecessary comment. And all this about plainness and unremarkable face and nothing special about her. You know, she is special. I don't know why the author is trying to tell us that she's not. She is special because she is a princess. And also the trope where the main character loves to read and is really smart. That trope is also used in this book. Yeah, it didn't sit well with me. I got a sour taste in my mouth just reading, especially the comment made from the possible love interest about her being too plain for him. Didn't like that. Don't like that everybody calls her plain, like basically calls her ugly, and she calls herself ugly. Physical description of the character, yes, that is needed, but just saying that she's plain, like how am I supposed to picture plainness? Like how does an unremarkable face look like? I don't really know. And the second thing was about the love interest, the guy that she meets early on in the book that she is very like attracted to. I don't like how stereotypically bad boy he is. I just feel like it's overdone. He has no respect for Kelsey as the main character. I want a bad guy, but I want him to be good-hearted and kind of nice and treat the heroine with respect. Anyway, that's my update as of now, but I'm working my way through it, so I will update you guys again when I have read some more. So I finished The Queen of the Tearling by Erica Johansson. My final rating is 2 stars. There was a lot of things that I didn't like about this book, and honestly, it brought it down to 2 stars. It would have been a 3-star if it wouldn't have been for those things, especially the stereotypical view of women and Kelsey as a queen, how she should be, how the men surrounding her think she should be, especially about her weight and her looks. Like I talked about in the last clip, there was a comment made from The Fetch, a character in this book. A comment made by him that she was too plain, and so that really annoyed me. And yes, I do see the point of having a main character that maybe doesn't look like a stereotypical, you know, the model type character, because that is not our reality as girls. We don't look like supermodels. It's unrealistic to think that women do. So it is important to have that aspect of a story, that not every main character has to be really beautiful, but at the same time it was pointed out so that the main character, Kelsey, was reminded of it at all times, and she just kept on accepting this of herself and accepting everybody around her treating her like this and saying those comments to her. And I would have liked for Kelsey or the people around her to actually realize that their comments may be harmful, that it's really unnecessary to comment about someone's plainness or comment about someone's weight, because that is also a thing that happened in this book that I was really shocked about. In the later half of the book, since I last talked to you, one of the Queen's Guard, I can't remember which, or was it two maybe, commented that Kelsey had put on weight. It was just like that, just a comment about her putting on weight, not the consequences of that, not really, you know, you should probably start working out more or something like that. It was just a statement made by some of her guards to Kelsey that she has put on weight since she arrived at the keep. That is so unnecessary, because we have already established Kelsey as a main character. We have already established that she is just a normal girl. We have already established that she doesn't have, you know, the hourglass figure. So that was just such a angering. I got really angry at that, because this is something I don't see in other books. Because we have main characters in other books that may be plus size. We have those characters nowadays in other books, but in the book, if they are treated like this and if people are commenting on that, we also get a view from the main character that is wrong. We get a view from maybe another person, side character, stepping in and telling someone that what you are saying is wrong. But this book made it feel like there was nothing wrong about commenting about someone's weight. There was nothing wrong about saying that someone is plain and therefore you would not like to, you know, be seen with her or be with her. I don't even know if you're understanding what I'm trying to say here. What I'm saying is, I think it's great to have representation of, you know, our actual reality, so that not every main character looks like a fucking supermodel. I think that is so freaking great, and we see that nowadays, but it can be handled so differently. The guards out of the blue just commented about her weight, saying that she had put on weight, and then Kelsey reflects on that and says, like, in her head, yeah, she has put on weight since coming to the keep, she should probably like exercise more, I don't know, fit smaller dresses or something like that. It is okay for her to put on weight. She is ruling a fucking kingdom. It's okay. Like, her guards don't need to be commenting on that. Like, she is the one that has to make the reflection if she doesn't feel comfortable in her body the way it is. And she has to make that choice to maybe do something about it if she wants to. It's not supposed to come from like her fucking guard, when clearly she's not that unhealthy. And also, there's an instance in the book, Kelsey has to cut her hair because she has to pretend that she is a boy. Just so you know, it's just a small thing really. So she cuts her hair really short, like all of this gone. And then someone made a comment like, what the hell have they done to your hair? Like it was a bad thing. This comment was made from the same man that said that she was too plain for her. This is a political fantasy about a girl who suddenly has to become a queen of this kingdom and everything is standing in her way. She has to win the hearts of the people, win the hearts of her Queen's Guard, because the Queen's Guard doesn't really respect her in the beginning. This is a political fantasy book, and I don't think that comments about her appearance or her weight or anything about her, I don't think those comments needed to be in here. And I know that if this would have been published now, those comments would not have been in there. For example, there's a lot of people who look like Kelsey Glynn. There's a lot of people who feels represented maybe in Kelsey Glynn. And then those comments in the book about Kelsey being overweight or ugly in a pixie haircut or plain, and therefore she will not get a boy to like her. All those comments are really harmful for the young ones reading this book. And even me, being older than, you know, the younger people reading this book, I could take away harmful things from this book. This was a little bit of a rant, I know that, and if you do like this book, or if you do love it, I can understand the good parts about this book, because if you like a political high fantasy, or a political fantasy in general, this is a book for you. This wasn't really a book for me in the first place, because I don't really like political fantasies. I do enjoy some political aspects of it, and I thought that the political aspects of this book was great, and therefore it will get 2 stars and not 1 star. I was just angry. reading this book, and I'm glad I'm done with it. So now for the last book that I will read for this video, it is The Exiled Queen by Cindy Williams Chima. So the last book followed, like I already talked about, Han Alistair, which was a street thief, and then we also follow Princess Reza, and she is the princess in this kingdom that Han Alistair also lives in, and there's a lot of magic going on, and I think this book is maybe going to be set at a magic school, and I'm hoping that it will be, because I'm looking for a, you know, a smaller scale fantasy set in a town or set in just one country and not this overarching big war. I'm not really feeling that, so I think I will get that from this book. And if you do have any recommendations of like smaller scale fantasies, leave them in the comments below, because I would love to read them. I'm gonna start reading this brick of a book, and I'm scared because I need to be putting out this video in like 2 weeks, and that's not a long time to read this whole book, and I think I will have a hard time reading it. It also doesn't come in an audiobook form, so I will not be able to listen to it at the same time like I did with The Queen of the Tearling, so I will just have a hard time in general to get through this book. But hopefully it will be a page turner, and I'm thinking that if it is a smaller scale fantasy, like set in a magic school, I think that will be great. So I haven't updated you guys until now, and I am this much into the book, 419. So I'm just gonna quickly update, because I don't really want to sit down and talk right now. I just want to read, because this turned out to be exactly what I want right now. It is about Han Alistair, which we followed in the first book, and Reza. It took a long time for them to actually get to Odensford, the school that they are going to and learning wizardry and military stuff. It took a long time for that to actually happen, but until then we have gotten a lot of Reza and Amon, her personal guard and her best friend slash crush. We have gotten a lot of their relationship and a lot of chemistry between them, and that angst was really what I needed right now. It doesn't feel as big as, for example, the book that I read before this, The Queen of the Tearling. It doesn't feel that large of a story. It is set in only like on the road to Odensford and then on Odensford, and then we get to know a lot of new people and characters. It's really what I need right now, and that's the end of it. And now on page 419 we have just gotten a scene with Reza and Han together, because they have seen each other at Odensford but they haven't talked. But now they have talked, and I'm excited to read about how their relationship is going to unfold from here on out, and just how this book is going to go. And so I think right now, more than halfway, I think I want to read a sequel, but we'll just have to wait and see. And I'll talk to you guys again when I have finished the book and tell you what my final thoughts are. I finished The Exiled Queen by Cindy Williams Chima. I know I haven't updated you guys much about my experience while reading this book one, just because I know that this vlog is going to be quite long, because I had a lot of things to say about the other 2 books, but my overall thoughts about this book is that it was just filled with all the things that I felt like I needed at this point. It was really fast-paced, even though it was almost 600 pages. Action-packed, angsty, there were a lot of high stakes, not in the big scale sense, but there was a lot of high stakes for our 2 main characters and the things that were happening around them on the campus of Odensford, which is where this book takes place. And I just loved the setting that this book was set in. We got a lot of, in the first 200 pages, or like 160 pages, there was only like traveling, and that part was really slow and it really dragged the pacing down, and I think that that's why it took so long to finish this book, because after that there was so many things happening all the time, and I just wanted to read about what was happening next for 2 main characters, because I do really like them as main characters. But I really love Han and Reza, the 2 main characters, like I said. I really love them, and I really like them together, because in this book, for the first time, we actually get to see how they interact with each other on a deeper level, and they kind of fall for each other in this one, and that was a promise that the author kind of made in the first one, that they would be very like attracted to each other and want to be with each other. But in this one that really happened, and I know that Cindy Williams Chima has set up a lot of things to happen in the third one, because Reza got into a very tricky situation, but she kind of managed to come out of that alive, and I really want to know what is going to happen with her and her story. And I also want to know what's going to happen with Han, because Han is working for multiple different forces right now, like in this book, and I just want to know who are going to win. I just want to know. So I think I'm gonna rate this 3. I was thinking like 3.75 or 3.5, but I think a strong 3-star is the case for this one. If I compare it to the other two, this is definitely better than Rebel of the Sands in the sense that I care a lot more about these characters in this one. I care a lot more about that than I did in the Rebel of the Sands. But since this is the second book, I have already gotten to know the characters and I already know them. So it isn't really comparable, but I did enjoy this more. It's definitely better than The Queen of the Tearling, because I didn't like The Queen of the Tearling at all. And this just shows that this was published in 2010 and it still tackles a lot of great discussions in this book. I really enjoyed that aspect of this book, and I feel like it was tackled in a better way than maybe The Queen of the Tearling did with some of their subjects. Anyway, okay, that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Leave a like and a comment below if you have read any of these books. Let me know what you thought of them. If you remember feeling any feelings that I have felt while reading those books, like for example The Queen of the Tearling, I would love to hear your comments about that. Does the series get better over time with the other books? Let me know in the comments. And this was such a fun experiment to do and see that it doesn't have to do with when it was published. I just think it has to do with maybe not the author but the story that they wanted to tell and the way that they told it. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!